Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Now the number one sports podcast network in the world, most likely the galaxy. Thanks as always for making us your first listen with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan, back to wrap up the week, diving into the Matador Mob Mailbag. It's a special edition always, Chris, and we've got quite a few things to get to on today's episode. Want to get to, clearly, still some ongoing movement portal-wise and catching up on targets here or there within that frame of mind. Also some things that have happened or haven't happened in that sense, how it relates to 26, and maybe where that leaves us with a couple of position groups, some asking about as being the biggest works in progress. I'll explain more coming up in just a moment. Also related to that conversation, questions about the appropriate level of whelming when it comes to this class. Still not complete, I don't guess, technically. Over, underwhelmed, right in the meaty middle of being whelmed. We'll get to that in just a minute, but wanted to kick off our conversation, Chris, looking ahead to the biggest game in America, college basketball-wise, coming up this weekend. It's once again in Lubbock, Texas, USA. A happy Arctic Hammer weekend to all who are in our area experiencing this with us. It's Tech in Houston, 5:30 from United Supermarkets Arena. Chris, we had Lance, we also had Robert, we had Caden, we had Peyton, and Callie asking generally about changes you could foresee to give Texas Tech a changed result. You were close, but without Cigar last time around. Are there even buttons to push or anything you feel like may be in the works for Coach McCaslin and company that maybe could give us a win as opposed to a loss? Or is it just try and be better at what you do than you were last time? What do you think, round two?
Well, and I do think you are better defensively than you were the last time you played these guys. But, the last three games you've played against these guys has pretty much been down to the wire, like gone down to the last, minute or so. Obviously the one earlier this season and the two last year. I mean, you beat them, obviously, in overtime last year by one. And then Milo Suzan hits a big shot in Lubbock last year to kind of win that one in the last minute. That kind of sealed it for the Cougs. And then obviously they hold on by 4 this time. To me, this first of all, I'll be real interested to see who is available. I feel like you're just really close on more help being there. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know, if it's both Bamboye, if it's Mosley too, or if it's just one or the other, and if there's a minutes restrict. I mean, don't know, but I think that's a different dynamic that would seemingly only help. Now, heck of an acclimation period if you toss one of those guys out there after not having played either all season in Mosley's case or Bamboye for 6 weeks or so. But to me, this is all about how you handle what they tried to do to Christian. What does Jeff Linder come up with offensively to negate basically them trying to take Christian Anderson out of the game? I mean, I just can't emphasize this enough that this player is so good. He is so respected that you have coaches and teams throwing everything possible at him, and yet he's still kind of in the All-American conversation. And yes, that is absolutely the case. But that is what teams are doing, and we've seen him be face guarded by like 6'9", 240. We've seen him double teamed, which is what Houston did, and basically say, you don't get to play today. We're going to do this whole thing, and you're just going to have to sit it out. We're not going to give you or let you operate with the ball in your hands. So I don't know what Texas Tech will adjust to, but that's really where this game comes down to. It obviously, when you play Houston, it's a math problem typically. They don't shoot it well, but here's what they're gambling on. Their defense is so good that you're not going to get a shot off on some possessions because they're going to create a turnover. they're going to force you into a bad shot, but overall, they're going to try to get way more shots up than you. And then they're so good on the glass that they don't have to be a great shooting team. They feel like they're going to rebound enough of their misses, and then it just over time that's what is typically bears out, and that's kind of their philosophy. They could have somebody like Kingston Flemings or Emmanuel Sharp like get hot and shoot it well, but generally speaking, this isn't like some great shooting team, but they just bully you or try to, and then they're so good defensively. So it's field goal attempts is what it comes down to, and they limit yours. They get a lot more, and then they're really good at rebounding, and that's kind of the game within the game. But how you handle them doubling and putting two on the ball when Christian crosses half court, I'm kind of fascinated by. But that's the adjustment, and you could probably come up with a lot of different things. I'll be interested to see kind of what the challenges are and what adjustments everybody makes here on Houston's side of it as well. Because if I'm them, I'd pretty much do the same thing and see how you adjust, and they may have to adjust to your adjustment. But how many times can I say adjust? But that's what it comes down to, really.
Yeah, and I was going to say, this is the game that obviously you've been looking ahead to regarding what you just described there, and that was how Christian Anderson was impacted, and then you see the run that obviously he's been on outside of that ball game, and just wondering whether or not maybe something internally for him could be different. Has he got some clever idea as to how to better navigate that than he did last time around? I don't know, but it's going to be interesting to see how that part of the chess match sort of plays out. And again, Chris, just the physicality of it all, I think, when you're talking about this matchup with Houston and given what we know about Tech's rotation so far, what's the foul numbers going to be like? What's the foul trouble going to be like? What's your utilization as you wrap up the first half going to be like? Is there anybody that's, teetering on trouble there or something along those lines? So again, what probably are the prominent storylines or talking points going into this matchup. They haven't changed much from year to year between these two teams. But it does kind of feel like uniquely to Texas Tech, I guess, this time around. And maybe it's just myself as a fan, Chris, I don't know, over dramatizing it in my own mind, but it just feels like you're on such a high wire, man, in this physical kind of matchup with what you have to utilize personnel wise when it comes to that foul trouble or giving somebody a breather here or there. But Coach McCaslin, as we said, going into the last game, punching up, climbing a steep hill, will have something for him. And I'm just going to say that again. Whatever that is, he'll have something for him.
Yeah, and you've got a full game to understand, of film to watch and see what they did and will attempt to do, and so you'll be better prepared for it. Plus, you'll obviously be at home, but it is. You'll be in this game, and it'll be a physical rock fight war. I mean, there's just no doubt. That's just how it goes with these matchups against this team. And so what you're getting into there. But again, we'll just see what you have available, and if you get a little more punch off the bench and you have a little more size available and all those things, because any of it would help. I don't care if it's 2 minutes, 15 minutes, or like 28, like Tyree Bryan gave you the other day. Any of that is better. But keep in mind, you went at this shorthanded a year ago and beat them. You went at this a year ago here in this building when you only had 6 options available, including missing 2 of your best players and 2 starters, and so they will figure this out and be in this thing, but it'll come down to the margins will be small, and I just expect this to be a grind, which that's just that's just how it is with these guys, man.
And I guess you're right. It's not that unique numbers wise. The reasons have kind of changed, I guess, from game to game, but you've been a little shallow rotation wise anyway.
Yeah, I mean and you're used to it. You're used to it, but and how it's officiated. I mean, all those things come down to it. But because really, at the end of the day, what makes a good defense in college basketball, and really, I guess a good defense regardless of sport. Maybe football and basketball is what this would be attributed to, but good defenses ultimately don't let you do what you want to do on offense. And that's what Houston did to you in that first game this year. They don't let you run a lot of that pick and roll stuff. They just don't let you get into it. They make you catch the ball in spots where you're not used to catching them. And JT was catching it way outside the 3-point line and then trying to back down from there. I mean, it's all thrown off, and but that's what they do. That's what they're good at, and you have to be ready to adjust to it. So it could be a little wonky.
Hey, remember what JT did outside the 3-point line most recently?
I do, and he will. I'd be willing to bet you he'll be free to take a few of those, and so it would behoove him to knock those down because that would help you.
Man, I don't know what to make of that situation, Chris, because last year I was just like doing the eye roll and like, all right, whatever. When he's like missing free throws, but we're having to work on the 3-point shot because the scouts want to see it or something. I remember kind of that conversation, and I'm like, okay, great. Can we not do this like in practice? We have to do it during the game. But then he comes around this year. He's not really pulling the trigger on that many. And so I don't hear much about that talking point this year. And then boom, he goes white hot. And I guess I shouldn't say last time around, but the time before that, he goes white hot. And so now I'm thinking, let's get him back out there. Look, do we draw something up for JT at the top of the key, possibly to pull the trigger?
Well, and that may be something they give to you and say, hey, we can't stop everything. If he's willing to take that, we'll live with the results. But he knocked down 5 of those last week in those games versus Utah and BYU, but he didn't attempt one versus Baylor. Didn't need to. Other people were doing that and doing it well, as we remember.
Yes, they were.
Yeah. So, and typically speaking, it's not lost on me that he did make those 5.
First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and football is in full force, and FanDuel's keeping you stocked with action every game day with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet only $5, and if your bet hits, you're getting $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. Any way you like it, FanDuel has you covered. Quick, easy, and secure every time. If you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
It's not lost on me that he did make those 5 in home games. And so, you tend to think that maybe if you do heave some of those up, because I think he's like 10 of 35 on the year, which half of that came last week. So we'll see if he gets an opportunity to knock a few of those down tomorrow afternoon.
We got a long tradition of big man pulling triggers, and we say, no. Yes, great shot. Shout out to our guy, Daryl Dora. And I was just trying to remind myself, I didn't think it could have been this bad, but Christian Anderson last time against Houston, 3 for 11, 7 points. I mean, you think about the heater that he has been on outside of that game. And that's why I say this is the matchup that I know so many of us have been focused in on just because of that particular angle.
It was really just 4 points because he made that 3 at the very end to you kind of covered backdoor, but it was really 2 of 10 and 4 points. But he heaved up that 3. It counts, but that's where that's how that thing played out. But
money making night for him then Saturday.
Yep, certainly. Well, and he's had plenty of those. But yeah, this will be an interesting mental challenge for him as much as anything, and the team in general, because spacing and all those things, like it's every little thing matters quite a bit against a team that's this good. Sorry, and I did want to. We got the news yesterday too. You're going to be joining these guys in Vegas this coming Thanksgiving week later this year with that Players Era announcement coming up. So yeah, your Thanksgiving week is now booked in Vegas next week, and half your league will be up there as well. But you'll get 3 games, and Houston's one of those teams. But the Red Raiders will be too.
Chris, I know this is a crazy question to ask, but Kimberly was asking it, so I just wanted to throw it in. We are not meteorologists, and we're still many hours away from tip-off. I don't know what Saturday could bring, but just based on forecasts now, like odds of a cancellation, are they not 0? But like, is that conversation even being had or considered as we're still so far away?
I think it's absolutely 0% chance that this game gets canceled. Yeah, they're not doing that. Houston will probably get in at the time you're consuming this. They'll get in midday or some level earlier on Friday, and they'll beat the front. Now, the problem would be Houston getting out potentially. But that's that's just how this
worry
goes.
about that when we
Yeah,
get
that's their problem. And the Red Raiders have been on the other side of this over my years of doing this, where you get somewhere and then can't get out, and that's just part of it. But no, they won't. There won't be any cancellation here. That the game should absolutely go on as scheduled, and I think game day and all the things, and the front, as we've seen, is kind of, it's a bit delayed, and it's not quite as bad as some of the models from a couple of days ago. So we'll see what we ultimately get, but we'll be dealing with something. Funny you mentioned Daryl Dora, because I do remember back, I want to say that's around, I'm going to go 2005. You beat the Jayhawks here on a Saturday. There was a ton of snow on the ground, and it had happened the day before or whatever, so it wasn't snowing the day of the game. But we had wondered aloud then, hey, could Kansas get in? Is this game going to happen? It absolutely happened. You won. It was a memorable day, and your arena was juiced, and so it because your team desperately needs your support in this one. You have to have it to give yourself an extra edge. So anything you can do, it may not be ideal, but anything you can do to get there, man, I would certainly hope that people can. So
we're going to do it lathered up just right for a Saturday night. I'd honestly kind of forgot about the game day thing. Enjoy that trip, fellas. Mm-hmm. This question here from Preston. Let's switch gears. Preston is asking, is it an overreaction to think this portal class has been underwhelming outside of Brendan Sorsby? Chris, we're looking for an appropriate amount of whelming so far. And this is the class that, at last check by myself, is either ranked nationally within the top 10 or even, according to On3, number one. So Preston is asking, is it an overreaction to think that potentially the number one rated national portal class has been underwhelming?
I can't in any good conscience say it's been underwhelming. I mean, have they gotten everybody they wanted? No. I think if you're basing it on, well, we didn't get Cam Coleman, some of these other big ticket items that you maybe wanted. But I mean, the Sorsby thing changes your entire team and your outlook. I mean, he's a Heisman Trophy candidate. Go look at the odds. You get arguably the top interior linebacker in the portal in Austin Romaine. You arguably get the top interior defensive lineman from Wake Forest and Mateen. And so you get to all conference edge players and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? But I also, part of this too is like, it doesn't like work this way on paper, but Quentin Joyner and Hunter Zambrano are a part of this portal class too. I mean, you can call it semantics or whatever you want, but that was one of the top running back additions last year. And Hunter Zambrano was one of the top offensive line additions last year, and they are back. And then I just look at, the fact that, Howard Sampson and Terrence Carter and Bryce Pollock, all these all conference type guys, they're all, so not everybody had the nucleus that you have. And then you go and add a top 10 class, whatever. You're in a pretty good spot. But what's happened too is that you woke a lot of folks up. I mean, there was an article written recently about how Steve Sarkisian had to change the way he was doing things based on what Texas Tech was doing, period. Point blank, change the dynamic. So they, it's not going to be as easy on you because you're very much on the radar now. People are using your name, which they were a year ago. They're using your leverage and your interest, or however you want to phrase that. But now everybody's kind of more involved in this compared to last year when you kind of, I don't know, snuck up on some folks and was like, whoa, these guys are not messing around. I wonder what they're doing. Well, now everybody kind of has a better feel for it and all that. But you still put together a really, really good group of football players here.
Yeah, what's higher than one, Chris? Is there a number I'm forgetting? Something higher than number one?
Yeah, I mean, And there'll be some adjustments as this thing goes because more people will sign, and you've added the Kent State defensive end. You've added a punter recently. I wouldn't rule out another late addition. I think you're still kind of trying to sort through some things, but you're pretty close to done. But I wouldn't say it's totally complete. But there'll be some of that that bears out in the coming days and maybe next week of some that could adjust the rankings. But bottom line is, I think you're very happy with what you've put together.
Can I say I could not care less about the ranking. I don't care in any way, shape, or form about it. I'm just throwing it out there because if you want something to look at, it's there. Chris, It's about the context of your team and your roster, what you needed to fit into your puzzle. Did you do it or did you not? And that doesn't really tie into did we get everything we wanted as far as we love this name, we love that name because they're marquee names. The wide receiver edition was probably the most ho-hum, hit or miss for me this entire cycle. You love a big ticket, flashy guy, but I'm a big skeptic of the wide receiver position with all due respect as it relates to changing your fortunes. And within the makeup of this team, it's not my top priority. That's just me. Some might disagree, but it's about the context of your team. And I think I've said this before, your emergency quarterback need that you did not anticipate but had A+++, you nailed it, couldn't have gone any better. And to me, again, just my fan perspective, next on the list, linebacker shoes that have to be filled. You did that about as good as I could imagine you would do it with Austin Romaine. Now, there's the Bailey component, obviously, and a nation's top pass rusher. Does that just grow on a tree and you go get apples to apples replacement? Again, as a fan, I never had that envisioned, so I can't be left wanting that you didn't technically go do that. But I don't know about the additions so far. Maybe fantastic. And the makeup just may mean you don't have to do it the same way. So I've subscribed to no disappointment. I got to be honest with you, almost no disappointment within this cycle. But maybe that was given my expectations.
Yeah, and others may have had, but I do think too the Jordan Church addition that came late is a big one. Literally, I think that's got a chance to pay some serious dividends here. And you weren't, or it was just highly unlikely you were going to go find another David Bailey. I think we had said that multiple times. Him and Height were 10s, and maybe White and Trey White and Adam Trick. Yeah, Adam Trick are 8.5s. But they're still really. I mean, these are all conference group of 5 guys. These are dudes that were on NFL draft boards. I think you're going to try to take them from just like you did with the other two, and elevate them and get more out of them and push them further than where they thought they could go. And they're going to be around such a good group that will only help them. You're going to be just fine. You're going to be just fine. So,
well, let me tie that into this next question because it fits perfectly, actually, because if there was one place where I really would have liked to have seen something. First, today's episode brought to you by TurboTax. And tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without any stress or guesswork. So instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online, and they're going to handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms. And of course, they'll work to get you every deduction. It's a huge time saver and will give you real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it all. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done right now by a local TurboTax expert for only $150 all in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local. That's TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. If there was one place where I really would have liked to have seen something after, like I mentioned, a QB or a linebacker conversation is put to bed, it is on the back end of that defense, which has just kind of been intriguing to watch this offseason. Cole Wisniewski had a fantastic year. Obviously, Brendan Jordan in the mix. The Chapman Lewis departure was sort of strange. He's now a Utah State Aggie for some godforsaken reason. He chose to go there. Best of luck. Anyway, I'm still wondering about the safety spot. A lot of folks are out there. Dean is asking about any searching still ongoing at that position. And we also had Todd asking Chris in general, would you consider the safety spot to be the biggest work in progress or project going into the year if we don't make an outside addition?
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think you're going to add anything there. I don't think. I think they certainly looked at that, as we know, by the Minnesota safety that came on a visit. I think that's a player that they would have loved to have had. But I also think that it was like, okay, if we can't go get a sure thing, which I think Coy Parrish probably would have been that, I think there's some internal thought that somebody like Peyton Morgan could be next year's Jacob Ponton. And as we've seen, you've recruited really well around here. Like, look no further than what you trotted out there at running back last year. And so all some of these dudes need is a chance. Peyton Morgan was extremely highly recruited and ranked very high, and he just hasn't done it just yet. But yeah, I think, and I think there's others around him that could make that interesting too. I point him out because I think he may be penciled in as somebody that would be a fit in that spot, and replacing Cole Wisniewski. He's bigger, but Malika Skara, and you brought in a stud freshman in Aaron Bradshaw that is a dude, very highly recruited too. So that may be the route that they choose to go, and I'm okay with it. I mean, you can't expect to keep all of your young talent and then not let some of them poke through a little bit, or give them some opportunity. But I think Peyton Morgan may in fact get that opportunity, and if he turns out like Ponton, which I think is an NFL type player, eventually, then I think you'll be just fine.
That question, I'm glad you mentioned some of those younger guys or like a high school or prep level signee, because we also had questions about that kind of thing from Brian. Also had Lawrence asking about this, whether it's somebody like Guyton or some of the others, depending upon maybe position as well. Who do you view as far as like immediate impact type of expectation, and what are we actually saying if you even feel like they could make an impact or be in a rotation? Is a defensive end more prone to some of that than, say, an offensive tackle or other examples? What do you make of that? Because that level recruiting is through the roof. Some of the most exciting signees you've ever had from a prospect standpoint. But how immediate can we get excited, I guess, about contributions?
I think the first two names I would mention to you is Felix Ojo, potentially at tackle. Now, he's not going to come in and start, obviously, but could he be your swing tackle or push his way, up the depth chart a little bit? Sure. It's funny because he's been clipped a bit on some of the social media stuff where he comes off looking really bad, but then he continues to win a lot of awards and all these things too. His best football is in front of him. He's got a great frame. He's got the right mindset. He wants to be here, and he's got some serious talent. And that's up to Clay McGuire and Josh Cochran and those guys to pull it out of him. I think that LaDainian Guyton, the one thing that is going to hurt Guyton is if he was here now, I would probably feel a little bit different about it. He's not going to get here until June because he reclassed and it was just too much to overcome. I would bet you that because he's a freak, but it's hard. And I would say that, maybe more of what he could potentially do for you would come, midway through the season as he really gets adjusted and kind of gets the weight right and gets a feel for things. But who knows? We'll find out how much of a freak he is. But I wouldn't put my expectations too high. But can he help immediately? Yeah, at some level, sure. And then I would mention, I was just scrolling through the list, like Matt Ludwig, the tight end. I bet he helps you immediately. I think Ace Rowden, the running back, potentially could help, especially if you're still easing Quentin Joyner into the dynamic. I think you will be allowed to move, which I think you already have, Adam Hill over to linebacker, which we've talked about. Michael Henderson can move back to the secondary. The guys that you had kind of were leaned on for some of your depth because there just wasn't anything established behind Dickey and Jacoby. But Ace Rowden, he's a big kid too, and I think that's one of the positions that you could, as long as he can handle pass pro. If he can do that, then he can help you immediately. If he just can't handle pass pro, then forget everything that I'm saying. But running back, typically, that's a position where you can acclimate quicker than some if you can handle that one component I'm talking about. And he's got some size and physicality to be able to do that. I'm just looking at the list to make sure. And I guess I wouldn't just totally rule out like an Aaron Bradshaw poking his way through, getting some safety reps because I think he's a big time guy. But there'll be some guys that come in and like, dude, he's a lot better than we thought, or he's just learned it and picked it up quicker than we thought. Yeah. And keep in mind, the majority of these guys are all here, which is a huge benefit. They will look completely different when you see them in August for fall camp report date compared to when they showed up, and for the better. And you'll know who's serious about it, who has picked it up, or who's just kind of going through. I mean, you'll have a better feel for that then. But yeah, there's some. You're recruiting at a very high level here. I think I just don't want people to kind of forget about the high school kid. And I wonder too. I've thought about this, because it's pretty clear to me, depending on how you finish up your portal class, it's pretty clear you had, I guess the best way to say it is you had funds available. do you that didn't get spent? Okay, maybe let's phrase it that way. Call it cap room, call it, funds that could have been spent on the right, fit or whatever. Does any of that spill over into this now recruiting cycle for high school kids? Do you fish in in the elite pond again? Because I think you just might. And I think there's some thought that maybe don't take as many high school kids, but aim higher and get, focus on some of the better ones, so we'll kind of keep an eye on what you've already got. Kavion Bryant committed, but keep an eye on the LaDamian Guytons and the Felix Ojos for this upcoming cycle, which is we're about to get into. Like a Julian Caldwell is a name that has been out there quite a bit lately as a receiver. It's Tech, it's Texas, and it's Oregon for his services right now. Do you go that route and use some of the, again, a lot of different ways to acquire talent per se. So we'll just kind of see what happens.
All right. Thank you for that question. Brett is asking if we know when we'll get our new double T on our uniforms. It is 2026 after all.
Yeah, they are, I think, in the midst of transit. That's a big picture change. And I know some get that and some don't think about it. I do think that your uniforms and everything for the next academic year will reflect a lot of that. But there's a lot dealing with the retailers and a lot dealing with the whole thing. So that is in the works, and I would expect your uniforms and your field and all the things to reflect those changes by this upcoming fall, without a doubt. Yes.
All right. Thank you for that question. This question here from, let's go with Brock. He's asking about the football staff. Chris, are we actually keeping this thing intact after a championship winning season? Seems difficult to do, but it's been quiet. But to hear the answer to that question, you'll need to be a Matador Mob insider. So hit our show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial. For those on the outside, this is where we leave you. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss a thing, and become a Matador Mobster today for less than a cup of coffee a month so you can get the full Mailbag experience next time around. Have a great weekend, everybody. A warm weekend if you are in West Texas or most parts of the great state. I guess enjoy the Arctic Hammer, And we'll see you on the other side to warm up once again. That includes you, Chris. Thank you for the regulation time all week long. And we are on to the OT.
Arctic Hammer. Yeah, there is one possible coaching tweak that we're kind of monitoring right now. So we'll get into that a little bit. But yeah, be safe out there, people. Don't do anything dumb, but man, get to that building if you can. Give yourself some extra time and just go slow and trust your fellow drivers. We can do this.
Well, I was riding along with you until that last part. Trust your fellow drivers. Chris is looking for the bright side of humanity. Maybe it's going to be out there, or maybe not. Defend yourself at all times, kind of like being in a boxing ring. Thank you to the everydayers for always being out there. And, of course, the Matador Mob for keeping our mailbag running over. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts, or find a link to a free 14-day trial in our show notes. If you're interested in joining the mob, your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris Level, I'm KC Cowan. Thanks as always for the time. We hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.